Let me begin with something very real. Sales for most founders is not just operational, it is emotional. A deal is not just a transaction, it is expectation, it is effort, it is hope, and sometimes it is validation. When a deal progresses well, the founder feels confident. When a deal slows down, the founder feels uneasy. When a deal is lost, it does not feel like a simple business outcome. It feels personal. And this is something most founders do not openly speak about, but they experience it deeply. Because in founder-led businesses, sales is closely tied to identity. Now, why sales becomes emotional? Sales becomes emotional when outcomes are uncertain, when there is no clear visibility into the pipeline, when deals appear strong but suddenly disappear, when forecasts cannot be trusted, when effort does not consistently translate into results. In such an environment, every deal starts carrying disproportionate weight. A single opportunity begins to feel critical. A single delay creates anxiety. A single loss feels like a setback beyond numbers. This is not because the founder lacks strength, it is because the system lacks clarity. In my own journey of leading sales teams and working closely with founders, I have seen this pattern repeatedly. Founders carry a silent burden. They think about deals even outside working hours. They replay conversations in their mind. They question decisions. They wonder if something more could have been done. This constant mental engagement with sales creates fatigue. Not physical fatigue, but cognitive fatigue. And over time, it affects how decisions are made, because decisions begin to get influenced by emotion rather than clarity. Now, what changes when systems enter? When a structured sales system is introduced, something subtle but powerful begins to shift. The founder no longer depends on individual deals for emotional stability, because the system provides context. A deal is no longer viewed in isolation, it is viewed as part of a pipeline, a stage, a process, a probability. This changes perception. Instead of thinking, this deal must close, the thinking becomes, this deal is at this stage with these conditions. That shift from emotional attachment to structured evaluation is transformational. Now, one of the biggest changes is that sales stops feeling personal. And I call this a shift from personnel to process. In a chaotic system, outcomes feel personal. A lost deal feels like a failure. A delayed decision feels like a mistake. But in a structured system, outcomes are seen as part of a process. If a deal does not close, the question changes. Instead of asking, "What did we do wrong?" the question becomes, "At which stage did the process break?" This moves the organization from blame to learning, and that reduces emotional intensity significantly. Let me bring in a real reflections from my own experience. During my corporate journey, when I was handling large revenue responsibilities, there were phases where sales performance fluctuated. In these periods, every major deal carried emotional weight because visibility was limited. But as systems improved, better pipeline tracking, clearer qualification, structured reviews, the emotional load reduced. Not because challenges disappeared, but because clarity increased. And when clarity increases, the mind becomes calmer. This is something many founders discover only after systems begin to stabilize. Sales systems create something very valuable for founders, and I call this psychological safety of systems. This does not mean comfort, it means stability. When systems are strong, the founder knows the health of the pipeline. They understand where deals are progressing. They can anticipate potential risks. They do not get surprised frequently. This reduces anxiety because uncertainty reduces. And when uncertainty reduces, emotional reactions also reduce. Now the question is, why emotional sales is risky? Emotional decision making in sales can be dangerous. When pressure increases, founders may push deals prematurely, offer unnecessary discounts, overcommit on delivery, chase opportunities that are not well qualified. These decisions may help in the short term, but they weaken the system in the long run. When systems are absent, emotions drive decisions. When systems are present, clarity guides decisions. This distinction is critical. Now here is a deeper layer, and I call it detachment with awareness. Sales systems allow founders to operate with detachment but not indifference. They remain committed, they remain involved, but they are not emotionally entangled in every outcome. This is very similar to a principle found in Indian philosophy. Acting with full commitment but without emotional disturbance caused by outcomes. In a business context, this becomes possible only when systems provide clarity, because clarity reduces attachment to individual outcomes and increases focus on the process. Now let me share 3 signs sales is becoming less emotional. If your sales function is becoming more structured, you will begin noticing certain changes. First, founders react less impulsively to individual deals. Second, sales discussions become more analytical and less emotional. Third, decision making becomes more consistent. These are signs that the organization is moving toward psychological stability. Now here is the founder's new role. When sales stops being emotional, the founder's role evolves. They are no longer the firefighter, they become the architect. They focus on improving systems, strengthening processes, building long-term capability. This shift is essential for scaling because businesses do not scale through emotional energy, they scale through structured systems. Sales chaos creates emotional turbulence. Every deal feels important, every outcome feels personal. But sales systems bring something deeper. They bring clarity, and clarity creates calm. When sales becomes structured, founders do not stop caring. They simply stop carrying unnecessary emotional weight. And that is when leadership becomes stronger. Because decisions are no longer driven by anxiety, they are driven by understanding. If this episode resonated with your experience as a founder or sales leader, consider sharing it with someone who may be silently carrying the emotional burden of sales inside their business. You can also follow the MSME Growth Hub podcast as we continue exploring how businesses can move from sales chaos to structured clarity.